Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose. The man who rules the world runs into the irresistible force of a man with nothing to lose in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get the regular and variant editions of John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose on Amazon.com today. This weekend, we saw the collapse of the Trump presidency. On Sunday, when protesters were coming near the White House, instead of your Donald Trump going out here to address the American people who were frustrated and angry regarding the murder of George Floyd, he shut off all of the lights in the White House and went to go hide in a bunker. And the next day, when protesters were out having a peaceful protest, your Donald Trump decided to go out here and have police remove those protesters and then decided to have a photo op. Now, according to your Donald Trump, it was supposedly William Barr who made that decision. However, William Barr works for the President of the United States. And because he works for the President of the United States, the executive branch of the White House, that means that the President of the United States signed off on the decision to clear out those protesters with force, even though they were having a peaceful protest, in order for the President to have a photo op in front of a church he only went to for his inauguration. Now, what's really troubling about these actions is it shows that your Donald Trump is just not someone who is qualified to lead the United States of America in the executive branch in the role of the president. And because he does not qualify to do this job, he only thinks about himself and he only thinks about what is benefiting him. And what's even more troubling than those actions that he participated into in the weekend as related to his lack of leadership was the action he wanted to take regarding the American people. Now, your Donald Trump believed that many of the governors here in the United States were not doing their job to quell the riots, and he called those governors weak and soft. And he wanted to propose to bring military soldiers into these cities. And that decision to me just was really troubling, because to have U.S. military soldiers taking action on U.S. citizens, that is just something that is just really disturbing for a president to propose. And what I even find more is just disturbing is that instead of thinking of a way to calm the American people, to assure the American people, this man was going out of his way to escalate things and not understanding that the reason why so many people were frustrated and angry was because there has been no leadership, as I see it, on the local level, no leadership on the state level, and now no leadership on the federal level, and no one is making an effort to assure the American people that justice will be served. And it's clear to me from your Donald Trump that he doesn't really even understand his own United States Constitution based on the actions he wanted to participate in by having military soldiers going into American cities to go after American citizens. Moreover, he doesn't even understand how bad this looks to the international community. I mean, how can we sit there and chastise Kim Jong-un of North Korea for attacking his own citizens? How can we go to other countries like Iran and talk about how they violate people's human rights, and China, how they violate people's human rights, when we have a president who is sitting here proposing to do the same to American citizens? And if that doesn't trouble you as an American citizen, then I say you really don't appreciate this country, because that's what supposedly makes us different than any of these other countries we criticize. And for your president, again, to sit there and propose sending our American troops to these cities, that just shows, again, how your Donald Trump clearly is not qualified to be the leader of one of the greatest nations in the world, and how he really doesn't understand the gravity of his actions as related to this country. Now, I often say that a president is a reflection of we the people, and what we're seeing in the mirror as related to our president should trouble everyone, because what we're seeing as related to our president shows us the dark and horrible truths about ourselves. Because in America, we the people elect our president, and who we elected is someone who clearly is not qualified to be our president, and he promised to make America great again, but it's clear that instead of him taking us to so-called greatness, he has dropped us down into a dark abyss. However, there is a way out of that dark abyss, and the road to coming out of that dark abyss is America has to take a long, hard look at what is being reflected to them in that mirror, because what is being reflected to them in that mirror reveals dark and horrible truths about the state of this union. And when it comes down to the state of this union, it shows how we are becoming more of a fragmented people, and how we really have not dealt with this issue of race, which is dividing we the people. And because we the people don't want to acknowledge the dark truths regarding racism and white supremacy in this country, this is why things have gotten worse over the last 12 years as I see it. Because in the aftermath of the murder of Trayvon Martin by George Zimmerman, the previous president, Barack Obama, wanted to deny the dark truths regarding racism, and when he did not file federal civil rights charges against George Zimmerman to put that line in the sand, that started us heading down the road to seeing the dark truths in that mirror. He wanted to deny them, and because he denied them, what happened was things continued to get worse, because many of these race soldiers and white supremacist beta males, they believed that they could operate without impunity, and this led to the rise of your Donald Trump as a political figure, because your Donald Trump would not have been a political figure had we confronted the race issue back in 2011 and 2012, but we didn't confront it, and now in 2020 we are now dealing with this exact same problem, because we the people don't want to take that long hard look in the mirror at ourselves, and we don't want to take a long hard look in the mirror at the person who we chose to lead us to so-called greatness, but has dropped us deep into an abyss. Because when you have a president who wants to talk about attacking American citizens for fighting for justice, that's a problem when I really see it. Because when you have a group of people out here marching and protesting, and your rogue people infiltrating, there's no way to tell who is protesting for freedom, or who is using these protests as a way to incite violence. And again, when you have soldiers out here and they are firing weapons or of any sort, the bullets don't know a name. And again, firing on your own citizens, that's something Saddam Hussein does, that's something Kim Jong-un does, that's something dictators do, and again, that's not the standard for the President of the United States of America. The standard for the President of the United States of America when there is a protest is to understand that the government is not serving we the people, and the government, even more so, is not listening to we the people. And when the government does not listen to we the people, that's what leads to people rising in protest, and that's what leads to some extreme people going out here to riot, because that is a sign that your president, again, is not listening to we the people. And again, the president is a reflection of us, and it's clear that the reflection is showing us the dark truths about our country, that our leadership is disconnected from the reality that is in front of us. The leadership of this country really cannot set a tone to move forward. The leadership of this country can't set a direction for where it wants to go. And again, that also reflects on we the people, because we the people, I believe, are too afraid to confront the race issue here in America, because they don't want to take a critical look at the painful truths regarding this country. And because these people want to continue, some of them, maintaining the smooth world provided to them by the white supremacist system, they want to continue maintaining that system because they are benefiting from it, and because they are benefiting from that system where they have a smooth world, where they can have a secure job, a secure place in society, and they know that they will always be comfortable in that place, because as long as black people are at the bottom of the world, they know that they'll never reach the bottom. They want to continue maintaining that system. However, rock bottom is something that makes many in the addictions part of our society understand that they have fallen completely off. And it's a start as related to being a finishing point, it is also a starting point. So rock bottom means you have to actually acknowledge that you have a problem. And sadly, many in America don't want to acknowledge that we have a problem related to race, and they want to get a quick fix scheme in order to get back to the smooth world. And that's the other dark truth about Donald Trump's presidency. The main reason why he won primarily was because he promised to give us a quick fix and give us this Make America Great Again. But instead of making America great, he further opened the rift and further opened the divide between the American people. And again, that divide is a reflection of us, because that divide shows us that as related to our race relations, things are getting worse. And again, that is because we the people chose to make that divide even further. And we decided, we again are making all of these decisions, and we want to say it's somebody else. And that's another troubling part of American culture that, as I see, relates to the man crisis, because a lot of the big problems we have are partially due to that. But we have a lot of people who refuse to say this is their country and they want to take responsibility for it. And we've had this culture of passing the responsibility down. And again, that's reflected on Donald Trump's actions when we see how instead of him saying, I made the decision to clear out those protesters, he decides to pass that responsibility over to Bill Barr, the Attorney General, again, showing us that we the people have a problem in taking responsibility. Because, again, our president is a reflection of us, and if you look at his actions, they also reflect our culture, where people refuse to take responsibility for their actions. And your Donald Trump refuses to take responsibility for his actions as related to escalating things with George, in many cases, because his flaming rhetoric is one of the things I believe that has made things worse as related to the situation, and he has not really helped things by escalating things by going out here and saying, I'm going to use soldiers on protesters who are expressing their constitutional right to freedom of speech and freedom of expression. So I really look at, again, our Donald Trump, and I look at him and I see one side of the problem, but I can't blame him for all of the problem, because it was 60% of white women, 90% of white men, and 30% of Hispanics who put this man in office, and put this man in office because we the people didn't want to realize that the political process is controlled by us, and we need to take that process a lot more seriously so we get a president that reflects the best of us and not the worst of us. So we really have to take a long, hard look at ourselves. We need to take a long, hard look at our country. And while it is painful to see the dark truths presented us in the mirror that your Donald Trump is holding up, in front of us, we have to acknowledge those truths as related to America. And the truth is, America has been hypocritical when it talks about racism and talks about being a great American melting pot, but has gone out of its way to, the only way they can have that melting pot is by making blacks the bottom of that pot. And that's the only way all of these whites and non-blacks can have their smooth world. And they believe it's okay to abuse black people and do black people all sorts of wrong, and this is perfectly fine. And that's been the culture of this country for over 400 years, and that's a painful truth many now really need to acknowledge if we want to move forward, because as I see it, we are in the middle of a vicious circle that started with the election of Barack Obama, and that vicious circle starts with Obama and then came with the election of Donald Trump, and now here we are with Joe Biden, Barack Obama's vice president, running for office, and it looks like we're headed right back to square one. And the only way to break that cycle is to take that long, hard look in the mirror. We the people have to look at ourselves, look at our country, and ask ourselves the critical question, is this what we want reflected out at the world? Is this the country we want representing us to the international community? And is this the culture we want to teach to our children? Those are the critical questions we the people need to ask ourselves about the state of our union, because we the people need to really realize how bad our country has become. Because when you elect a despot like a Donald Trump, who only promised to make things great but never understood things like sacrifice and responsibility in his own personal life, then how can this person talk about achieving greatness when he never really had to lose anything? And that's why America is losing right now, even though your Donald Trump talked about winning, because we the people don't understand we have a lot to lose, because in our country we are not just losing economically, we are losing our spirit. And again, we are losing this because a lot of us, we don't want to take the lead in our own lives, because again, when it comes down to the president, he is a reflection of us, and we the people have to start taking our country and making sure it maintains the standards that make this country great. And those standards are that everybody is supposed to have equal rights, equal opportunity, and everybody is supposed to get equal protection under the law. And it's clear that black people don't get equal protection under the laws of these lands, as related to the George Floyd murder, and that is a complete injustice that, again, exposes the hypocrisy of America's justice system. And again, your president further reinforced that by his actions this weekend, where he showed that instead of him taking the lead and trying to solve the problem, he would rather hide in order to preserve the smooth world that white supremacy created here in America and abroad, and that the smooth world of white supremacy has more importance than the security of the American people. They would rather have riots go on and have cities burned down rather than stand up for we the people and take the lead for we the people. They would rather protect and preserve that system of white supremacy rather than preserve the principles that this country was allegedly established on. And that's even the more troubling thing, is that they would rather follow white supremacy than make an effort to acknowledge these problems and then take the lead in leading America in a new age. Because I believe that if you wanted to run for president and you really wanted to bring change to America, you would acknowledge this racism problem here in America, and we would start making efforts to bring real change that's tangible to black people so that black people can get a truly equal opportunity, not something like affirmative action, which was stolen from black men and given to white women, not something like these programs that are given to black people so that others can benefit. A true equal opportunity where black business owners can go out here and have an equal opportunity to compete, because competition is what makes America strong. And in order to get to a great America, black people need to have tangibles in terms of policy protecting our civil rights, our freedoms, and providing us equal opportunity, something the Great Society failed to give black Americans. And again, that's another dark reflection on we the people, that we the people, even though we had the so-called baby boomer generation, they didn't really bring any change to civil rights. And that's another painful truth people don't want to deal with. And again, these painful truths need to be dealt with in our country if we hope to ever make this country a truly great country. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.